The Nats Chat end-of-season podcast party is Friday, October 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. at Walters, the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast. Al, Tim, and I will all be there, ready to hear your opinions about Giovanni Cruz's velo, Jorbit Bibas's playing time, and C.J. Abrams' move to second base, if it's actually happened by then. More info to come as the date approaches, and again, that's Friday, October 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. at Walters.
Thinking about upgrading your sleep? Now is the time to shop Sleep Number. Trusted by millions for nearly 40 years, Sleep Number offers superior comfort, personalized adjustability, temperature benefits, and value that is unmatched in the industry. And right now, during the Sleep Number Labor Day sale, all mattresses are on sale. Invest in your sleep and experience firsthand Sleep Number's personalized comfort. Stop by a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com to learn more.
Swing by Lile and a drive hit in the air to deep right field. This is way back. It's going, and caught. Goodbye. In and out of the second deck and straight away right over the bullpen. Caroms back down out of the playing field. Bang! Zoom goes Daylen Lile with his 17th home run of the year. His second home run in his last 3 trips to the plate. RBI number 72 cuts the Rockies' lead in half. A leadoff home run here in the bottom of the 4th inning. It's now the Rockies 2 and the Nationals 1.
Blake Butera hoping for the long ball. They're not going to hold Ford. There goes Harry, the pitch. Swinging a fly ball right field. Back on this one, the right fielder back, but he's got to play. And well shy, the warning track makes the catch, and the Rockies win the ball game 3-1. They end their 7-game losing streak, and they even this 4-game series at a win apiece.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Nationals Park. So make it 19 losses in 26 games for the Washington Nationals. A 3-1 loss to the Colorado Rockies at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening in Game 2 of a 4-game series is... Yes, the offense, one game after scoring 13 runs, was back to being bad. The Nats now are back to being 10 games below 500, 62 and 72, run differential of plus 18. The Rockies now a National League worst 51 and 81 with a National League worst run differential of minus 144. Good to have you with us, though. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website, tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You could call Table to Mat 240-388-2206. Mark, like a carriage morphing back into a pumpkin, the Nats offense from 13 runs against the Rockies' woeful pitching staff on Monday evening to just 1 run against this Rockies pitching staff on Tuesday evening. We thought that, maybe this series cures the offensive ills for the Nats, and maybe that does end up happening, but Tuesday evening, not a good sign when it comes to the potential for that happening.
No, this felt just like what we saw on the road trip, what we saw in New York, what we saw in Texas, what we saw in Miami. It's not what you expect against the Rockies. I'll be honest, I actually did think that this was going to be, for the first time this year, a late inning rally by the Nationals to come from behind. Because I figured if there's one bullpen in baseball you might be able to mount a late rally against, this is it, the Rockies. And then what happened? I mean, they didn't even have a man in scoring position over the final 4 innings of the game. Rockies bullpen zeros across for them. That's not a group that you should be expecting that from. And it just continues with this pattern that we've seen all year. Even when they've been at their best offensively, it's mostly come early in games, or if they've scored late, it's adding on to a lead they already have. They just do not have the ability to come from behind, even by 1 or 2 runs like they were in this game. It's just not there for them this year.
So do you think that that's just a quirk, or do you think that that is like a fundamental flaw with this team? Like there's something with the DNA of this team to where this team doesn't come from behind to win games. We had the thing earlier this season of the Nats being so much better on the road than at home, and that always kind of felt like a quirk and not really something that we should read too much into. And sure enough, that is kind of corrected here, certainly over these last few weeks. So when it comes to the lack of come from behind wins. What do you think? Like, is that a something, or is that just a random kind of whatever and we shouldn't read too much into it?
I've been trying to dig into that a little bit here because it keeps happening over and over, and you figure there's got to be something to this that's going on. You know, in general, it's become harder and harder to score runs off good relievers late in games, especially when you're trailing. You're going to see a team's best bullpen. So there may be a little bit of that to it. Obviously, the lineup they're trotting out there right now is not a lineup that's built to score a lot of runs anyways, let alone facing top relievers late in games. I think the surprising part is that didn't happen in the first half of the year when they really were clicking offensively. And as I said, all those big scoring games they had were mostly scored early or tacking on more at the end. So I do think there is something that they have when it comes to facing frontline relievers late in games. I think they've done really well against starting pitchers, in part because of the preparation they have for them. When you're talking relievers, maybe you don't get as much time to work on all of them and you don't know exactly who you're going to face. So there could be some of that to it. I think also as it's gone on, and they know the situation, maybe they don't know the exact number of times, but for the record, they are 1-55 when trailing after 7 innings now on the season. But they basically know that it's something like that. It's just not happening regularly. It does get in your head. And I think what you've seen is it's not like this isn't the old Davey Martinez, the boys battled, tying run at the plate, runners in scoring position just couldn't get that one last hit. They're not even giving themselves chances at the end of games. So that says to me that the at-bats have not been as good. Blake Butera mentioned after this one that you get into those spots and really, as much as everyone wants to be the hero, the key is just have a good at-bat and try to get on base and give the next guy a chance to do it. And so he actually had Harry Ford in this game draw a 2-out walk in the ninth. Now, nothing happened after that, but he was impressed with that.
I understand everyone wants to be the hero, right? But at the end of the day, like just getting on base and moving it to the next guy is huge there. I think Harry did a really good job of that by working that walk.
I think that's the kind of stuff they're looking for more. Don't try to be the one who hits the ball out of the park and ties the game or wins the game. Just put together a quality bat to get on base, try to sustain a rally, give yourself a chance with runners in scoring position in the 8th and 9th innings. It feels like they don't even do that. Certainly not in recent weeks.
Yeah, Harry Ford in the bottom of the 9th drew a 2-out walk. Keibert Ruiz came up as a pinch hitter for Nasim Nunez, swung at the first pitch and flew out to end the game. I mean, the previous batter just walked. I know Keibert Ruiz's thing is to swing at first pitches, but geez, I mean, maybe take a pitch in a spot like that. But yeah, bad offense in this game again. The Nats for the game, 1 run, 5 hits, which were a homer, a double, and 3 singles, 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position, 10 strikeouts. The Nats did draw 4 walks, but the Nats over their last 9 losses have totaled 15 runs. I mean, let that sink in. 9 losses, a mere 15 runs. The offense, by far, has been the number one reason for Nats losses lately. And, you know, the cruel irony of what's happening here is that the pitching lately actually hasn't been that bad, hasn't been lights out, but has been good enough to win in a good chunk of these games. If the offense was just decent, the Nats actually would be winning at a decent clip these days, but that's not happening. And, you know, it's a funny deal, too. The juxtaposition of the Nats' inability to come from behind to win games with the bullpen's penchant for giving up late leads. Like, those are 2 big-time things that go together in a very ugly way for the Nats, and we've had those 2 things in effect here this season. Now, a bright spot for the Nats on Tuesday evening was Daylen Lile. He's the Nats starting left fielder and number 4 batter, 2 for 3 with a solo homer, a single, and a walk. It did get thrown out in an attempted steal of second base, but Lile and the Nats 1-run 4th, a leadoff homer to right field to cut the Nats deficit to 2-1. Lile now at 17 home runs and the OPS now at 715, up from 691 as of games through August 20th. August 20th was just a few days ago that Lile has raised his OPS from 691 to 715 in just a handful of days. He has gotten hot. Very nice to see.
And this is eerily similar to what we saw almost the exact same time last year. So I looked it up on August 16th of 2025. His OPS was 695. I think we tend to forget that he had some moments earlier on, but he didn't really take off until about this time. So he went from 695 on August 16th to 845 at the end of the season. Now, it would take a superhuman effort from him over these final 5 weeks to get back to a number like that. But the fact that he has over 5 days raised it a good number of points, as you just outlined, and the way he's doing it, it's better swing decisions. It's hitting for power, again, home runs and doubles. There's more confidence you can see from him. And I thought it was interesting. He told us that he's actually doing less hitting work pregame than he has done in the past. That he finds that the less he works on it, the less he has to think about, and maybe that just allows him to use his natural swing and just trust himself to have some success. And when he was asked, like, how's that compare to what he's done in the past, particularly last year, he said it's the exact same thing he did last year at this time.
It was pretty much the same thing. So I'm just translating what I did last year to now.
So he's figured something out there. Now, maybe he needs to figure that out a little earlier in the season and not wait till late August to do that. Hopefully this continues, because that would be a tremendous development for them over the rest of the season. He doesn't have to duplicate what he did 2025. That would be great. But if he can just be a good quality, consistent producer the rest of the way, that puts a much better taste in his mouth, and I think makes the organization feel a lot better going into the offseason.
Well, he has a shot at 20 homers. I mean, he should finish with at least 20 home runs, you would think. He's at 17, and you'd love to see that OPS get to 750 plus. You know, is that possible here, that he could end the season with a really good September and get that OPS to a nice, healthy percentage there? I think he's a good player. We've seen the defensive improvement this season, which has been significant. And I think he's shown enough to where he can be a good hitter. I mean, yes, he needs to be more consistent, but we're not seeing someone and when it's like, okay, what we saw last year was like a total fluke. Like, I don't feel that way. I don't think most people feel that way. It's just a question of like, how good is he? But I feel like he's at least decent, if not good, as a batter. It becomes a question of how good. But I think he's going to end up finishing with some pretty decent numbers when all is said and done, even with the inconsistency of this season.
His reputation in the minors all along was that he was an excellent hitter. The defense was a question mark, maybe a question of power with him, but his just pure hitting skills were always touted from a very young age. And it's why there were evaluators out there that liked him a lot better than some of the other maybe bigger name outfield prospects that they had coming up through the pipeline. Lile was a name that came up a lot, and I think you certainly saw it last year. You're starting to see it again. If he can just be an above average hitter, and that's, an OPS of 750, something like that, 20 homer potential, 20 stolen base potential, combined with the improved defense that he's shown, that's a really good, solid player for you to have. He's still got to prove it, but I agree. I think we've seen enough both at the major league level and know what the track record was in the minors to suggest that he can be that guy, if not, the superhuman guy that he was, player of the month in September last year, at least a solid above average major league hitter and an outfielder that you can trust to make the plays out there.
In case you're curious, C.J. Abrams did not start at second base on Tuesday evening. We still are waiting for C.J. Abrams to play second base for the first time since manager Blake Butera during his pregame session on August 14th said that the team is moving Abrams from being primarily a shortstop to being primarily a second baseman. Now, in fairness to Abrams, this was just his second game back from a sprained left ankle, but Abrams as an starting DH and number one batter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Can you tell us, was Abrams doing any work as a second baseman prior to this game? Are we at least making some kind of progress toward this guy finally playing at second base?
No, he not only didn't take any work at second base, he took no work anywhere in the field before the game. That ankle is still not 100%. And so they've decided, look, we'd rather have his bat in the lineup if he's good enough to do that, and we won't force that issue, and we'll just wait it out. We've already waited 11 days now without playing him at the new position, so might as well wait a little while longer. We'll be watching every day pregame to see what he does, but even at this point, he's not even taking grounders at short. He was just focused on his hitting and making sure that he could run the bases well prior to this game.
This is sports broadcaster Ben Raby and a longtime listener to the Nats Chat podcast. A while back, I was in the market for a personal trainers, and my ears perked up last season when I heard an ad from show sponsor Table to Mat. Proving the power of advertising, I reached out and eventually began a training program with Chad, and boy, am I ever glad I did. Chad will work with you to devise a personal program. The communication, the flexible scheduling, and the setup at his home gym are all great. I legitimately bounced around trainers and gym programs for years, and I've never had a more productive and enjoyable experience than working with Chad. Do what I did. Visit him online at tabletomat.com. That's table, the number 2, and Matt, M-A-T, tabletomat.com. Reach out to Chad. Hear the terrific workout programs he can build for you. Plus, like you, he's a huge Nats fan.
Do you hear that? That sound, right? That means that summer's officially here. It means that grown adults just sprint into the street for a frozen dessert shaped like a cartoon. But this summer, Mint Mobile has a better treat. Every plan, including unlimited, is $15 a month. And unlike ice cream, it won't drip down your wrist or look nothing like the picture. Does anyone have any cash? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. New customer offer for initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
If you're like me, you're the kid who savored every last drop of sugary milk at the bottom of your cereal bowl while watching Saturday morning cartoons. Kachava's new flavor, Cinnamon French Toast, gives you a bit of that classic nostalgia. And I love that it's made with real cinnamon bark. It's a comfort flavor, but with benefits and without the sugary drawbacks. There's no artificial colors, flavors, or sweeteners. It's non-GMO, there's no soy, there's no animal products, no gluten, and no preservatives. But Kachava does provide all the nutrition your body craves in one deliciously simple shake with just 2 scoops. So treat yourself to a childhood favorite. Go to Kachava.com and use code SPORTS for 15% off your first order. That's Kachava, Kachava.com with code SPORTS.
Swing and miss on the ball in the dirt, gets away. Ford doesn't know where it is. It's to the backstop. Rounding second, coming home is Beck trying to score the throw to Alvarez, blocking the plate, and they score the run. They say Alvarez blocked the plate. So the run scores on the ball in the dirt to the backstop. Beck scoring from second. Alvarez had the throw, and the home plate umpire, Marvin Hudson, scored the run, even though Alvarez appeared to block the plate and tag him out.
There was obstruction on the third baseman, therefore the runner coming to the plate was scored.
Okay.
Runner the third.
Well, that's good explanation there for Hudson.
Interesting game for Brady House. He was the Nats starting third baseman and number 5 batter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He is not having a good August. His OPS for this month now at 653. His OPS at the major league level in this regular season now just 680. Brady House, we want to see him be better. He is not producing like a guy who was taken with a number 11 overall pick in the 2021 MLB First Year Player Draft should be producing. But also with Brady House in this game, an obstruction call. And we got an interesting email about this. You can always email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Reese Davis wrote us this, writes Reese. Hey, Mark and Al, I wanted your takes on the controversial call of obstruction on Brady House in the 5th inning of Tuesday's game. From the angle that I got on Nationals.tv, it seemed like Beck, trying to score, took an obvious wide turn and bumped into Brady House at about halfway from third to home. I thought that Beck did this intentionally because he knew he was going to be out, so he tried to get obstructed, and it worked on the umpires. Interesting theory from Reese. What do you think about that theory?
Well, first of all, I'm just impressed that Reese Davis is following the Nationals so closely and listening to the podcast. Shouldn't he be like prepping for the season debut of College Game Day on ESPN?
RHYS, a la Reese Hoskins. So
Yes. But thank you. I couldn't help myself, but, including that one. I get it, what he's saying. I was kind of wondering myself. I think a lot of people were wondering. But here's the 2 points to know. Number one is that Blake Butera didn't even come out to question it or argue it. And afterwards, he said that it was the right call.
I mean, it's a weird play. I haven't seen obstruction in that spot before, but I understood the call.
So they didn't feel like there were any shenanigans there and that they believed that it was the right call. The problem with this, and it's always confusing, of course, is a fielder is required to get out of the way of the runner's path unless he is pursuing the ball, unless he's trying to make a play on the ball, and that's what puts him in the way of the runner. This was a weird play. It's a strikeout wild pitch, and House is actually thinking that the ball might carry him off the backstop and come towards him. So he's charging in to maybe have to go retrieve the ball. Well, it winds up bouncing the other way, and Harry Ford retrieves it closer to the plate. And House just found himself in a strange spot where the runner, Beck, made contact with him. Now, yeah, it was a wide turn, and maybe Beck could have done more to get out of the way of that, but we've seen this. I mean, they will very often give the runner the benefit of the doubt in situations like that. And I know it hasn't always gone the Nationals' way on these kind of plays, but I get it, and I suppose they could have tried to argue that it was Beck who initiated the contact and that House did nothing wrong. Unfortunately, just generally speaking in these cases, it is the fielder's responsibility to get out of the way unless he's actually fielding the ball at the time.
So hard to determine intent, too, even if something looks a little sketchy. Like, how do you know for sure what the thought process was? And yes, it does seem like anytime there's a play like this, it goes against the Nats. Like, it feels like the Nats had never benefit in a scenario like this one. So when it came to the Nats pitching in this 3-1 loss to the Rockies at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening, Andrew Alvarez was the Nats starting pitcher. Disappointing outing for him. 3 runs, 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 3 singles. Issued 2 walks and a wild pitch. Did record 6 strikeouts. That was good. 81 pitches, 52 strikes, 29 balls. Top of the 4th, allowed 2 runs on a leadoff homer by Hunter Goodman to left field for a 1-0 Rockies lead. An 8-pitch walk of TJ Rumfield, despite Alvarez having had Rumfield down in the count at 1.02, and a went-out first pitch opposite field RBI double by Connor Norby to right center field off the outfield wall to put the Rockies up 2-0, although Norby did get thrown out in his attempt to advance to third base. Alvarez in the top of the 5th allowed a run on 2 singles and a run-scoring wild pitch. So not a good outing for Alvarez. His numbers still are pretty good in terms of what he has done at the major league level in this regular season. 20 games, 12 starts, ERA 3.72, whip 135, strikeouts per 9 innings, 850. But these would seem to be significant starts for Andrew Alvarez, who is a candidate, you would think, for the Nats 2027 opening day rotation. But, he's not a guy who's going to be gifted anything. Like, he has to earn it. He's done well enough to put himself in the conversation, but, more outings like what we saw on Tuesday evening, and, that's going to hurt his case for being in that 2027 opening day rotation.
Right. What he had done to this month up to that point was solid. 5 innings every time, 6 innings in several of those starts, and 2 runs, I think, or less in most of them. Walks were not really an issue for him here. Starts off the night really well, retires the first 7 batters that he faced, but you could see it just kind of progressively got worse. And I think the most notable thing, his velocity went down as the game went on. It was 93.7 in the first inning, and it was down to 91 miles an hour in the 5th. And I think he admittedly just didn't have his best stuff. This next step for him, it's been overall positive for sure. And I agree, this is an important stretch for him because he's going to get the chance. They don't have alternatives to replace him or several others in the rotation right now. He's going to get the chance to finish out the year. And that might be his best chance to really make his case with this front office for being a part of the rotation plan going into next year. What he's got to do now, I think, is show that he can get you at least through 5 innings, if not 6, and sustain that all the way through. I think that's what's maybe holding him back at this point. Now, some of that is they've been reluctant to let him go deeper in games, but some of that is him needing to show that he deserves a little more rope to go deeper and not at the first sign of trouble get pulled. Keep the pitch count down, keep the walks down, keep the velocity up, and maybe you have a guy who you can count on for 5 or 6 innings. If he's still in that 4 to 5 range, even if the results are good, that's where it gets a little tricky. Is that good enough? Right now, yes. But ideally, by the time they get to next season, they're sure going to hope they have options who are better than that. And so to me, that's the biggest thing for him the rest of this season. Can he show them he can get through at least 5 every time, if not 6? Now, he'd done that well this month, but this particular start, he just didn't have it to get that far.
I would love to see him have an outing in which he doesn't put a bunch of guys on base. It seems like even when he does well, that's an issue. Just would love to see like a few outings here down the stretch where like he actually does a good job of not only limiting the runs, but limiting the people who he puts on base. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Rogers 2-2. Swing and a fly ball into right field, carrying well toward the gap. Martin's back. He's at the fence. It's gone! 20-game hitting streak. Home run number 28
for Lipscomb. And the Wings on the scoreboard emphatically now in the 5th. They're trailing by a run, 2-1 Buffalo.
Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. If you're using chat to research your next home improvement project, forget the prompts. We've got all the details on a company that you can trust. For replacement windows and doors without the hassle, just look up Window Nation. Window Nation is the real deal. Homeowners across the country love the one-day installation process, especially since Window Nation installers leave your home cleaner than when they started. And this month, you can get 50% off all window styles, plus 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 2 years. That's a lot of savings on top of quality windows and doors. 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Window Nation, the real deal when it comes to replacement windows and doors. 866-90Nation, windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Goodman deep in the box, feet close together, stance open a bit in the pitch. Swing and a long drive to left field. Lile going back and only watch. This is a long home run off the back wall of the Rockies bullpen. So Hunter Goodman returning from the injured list.
The Nats relief pitching in this game was good. 3 Nats relievers combined for 4 1/3 scoreless innings with 5 swinging strikeouts. Brad Lord, 2 1/3 scoreless and hitless innings. Came into the game in the top of the 5th with 2 outs, a runner on third, and the Nats down 3-1, and he got a big out. He generated a swinging strikeout of the Rockies' number 3 batter, Hunter Goodman. We had Max Kranick tossing a scoreless top of the 8th with 2 swinging strikeouts despite issuing a 2-out walk and then giving up a 2-out double, and we had Jake Bird tossing a scoreless top of the 9th. But truth be told, the most interesting thing with the Nats bullpen on Tuesday happened before the game. Blake Butera, during his pregame session with reporters on Tuesday afternoon, saying that the Nats are abandoning their plan to stretch out Brad Lord to make him a starting pitcher again and are going back to having Lord being a relief pitcher.
Yeah, probably. To become a true traditional starter, yes. I think we'll probably get back to where we had him originally, which is like that 2 to 3 inning out of the bullpen role that he did really well in. I think that 1 is better for Brad, and also 2, I think better for our team having him in that role because he pitched really well out of that role.
No Nats pitcher over the last 2 seasons has been toggled between being a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher more than Brad Lord has been, but we kind of felt like this might be coming. We did find out late night on Tuesday night that Matt Waldron, who on Tuesday afternoon was activated, will be the Nats starting pitcher for Wednesday evening's Game 3 against the Rockies in what would have been Brad Lord's turn in the rotation. But this is interesting to me because the Nats really didn't give this much time in terms of trying to stretch out Brad Lord in this latest go-round for him as a quote-unquote starting pitcher. Why do you think the Nats abandoned this plan so quickly?
I think it's a combination of the time of the season. It's getting pretty late to be starting to stretch a guy out. Like, at what point would he truly be ready to give you 90-plus pitches in a start? That one in New York where he couldn't even get out of the first inning, that kind of set everything back because it's almost like you had to start all over with that plan again. And now you're almost to September. So is it really worth it? But I think also, and I think those of us who've watched him the last 2 years would come to the same conclusion. He just seems to be more valuable as a reliever than as a starter. And I understand they have a need in the rotation. They don't have a lot of great options there. But if you're really focused on the big picture here, maybe it's just more important to identify where does Brad Lord best fit for you in the long run. I think we've seen enough now to know that he is potentially really valuable to them as this multi-inning reliever, more so than as a starter. He can pitch more than once every 5 days. He can give you multiple innings. He can pitch high leverage spots. He can give you length in the middle of a game. he's just versatile and almost to a fault that he's able to do whatever you ask of him. But I liken it to Craig Stammen years ago. He was a starter at one point. It didn't really work as well there. They eventually moved him to the bullpen, and he had a great career like that. And I've always thought that Brad Lord profiled like a Craig Stammen. And so I understand the thought process to maybe seeing if he could start. But I think at this point, it seemed clear, like, let's just make him a reliever. He doesn't have to be a one-inning guy. Let him throw 2, even 3 at times. I think it's more valuable having him pitch 2-3 times a week like that and potentially high-leverage spots than it is just to give him the ball once every 5 days. And maybe they just finally came to that conclusion.
Yeah, it's just a funny deal because, I mean, all of the things you just said, which all make sense, these things were in effect a few weeks ago when the Nats made this decision to stretch Lord out. So presumably the Nats thought about these things, still chose to stretch Lord out, and then pull the plug on stretching Lord out. To me, it's never a good look when you abandon a plan this quickly because it suggests a real lack of conviction in what you were doing. And you never want that as an organization. Like, you want to believe in something. And if you believe in it, then stay committed to it. Like, okay, he had a bad outing at the Mets. It's one outing. He also looked halfway decent in some of the other outings. Like, see it through a little bit. I'm a little surprised that the Nats were this quick to end this thing.
So a couple other things that have happened since then that maybe shaped the decision. Will Dion has kind of come out of nowhere to look really good as a guy who can give you length as well. And maybe I personally thought he was going to be the one starting on Wednesday night. I'm sure we're going to see him in some kind of bulk. So they did that. Then they also just acquired Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, who had been mostly with the Padres, but more recently with the Blue Jays, and he's going to get the start. This is fascinating because earlier in the day on Tuesday, Blake Butera said they don't look at Waldron as a starter right now. And then at the end of the night, they announced that he's starting. I don't think they're going to be seeking length from him because he had not been starting recently in Toronto. So this may be a case of, let's throw the knuckleball out there at the Rockies for a few innings and then go to Dion, the left-hander, after that. There's also some other bullpen machinations here at the end of the night as we've been recording. They announced that they optioned Jake Bird to AAA. Bird, one of the pitchers acquired in the Luis Garcia trade. He's looked all right at times, nothing spectacular. We know he wasn't the key to that trade. The corresponding move, not official yet, but it sounds like they may be calling up Luis Perales, the right-hander who they got from Boston in the Jake Bennett trade. A lot of us have been very interested to see how this plays out, given how well Bennett has pitched in Boston. The interesting thing with Perales, a starter throughout most of his minor league career and most of this year. More recently, they've moved him to the bullpen. They've done this with a bunch of their pitchers at AAA. There's only one true starter right now there in Rochester. Everybody else is pitching in relief and bulk innings. And the thought when I asked Butera about that last week is that they're kind of gearing up for how they might look at guys the rest of this year. So I think they're about to find out from Perales, how could he fit in to that mix as well. This is some unconventional stuff, what they're doing with their pitching staff right now. I don't know how long any of it sticks, but at least at the moment, Brad Lord's a reliever again. Matt Waldron is going to start the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Will Dion actually pitches more innings, and I would not be surprised if we see Luis Perales here at some point as well.
Yeah, Waldron may well be an opener for Wednesday evening. But yeah, we really are seeing the labels of starting pitcher and relief pitcher melt away with the Nats. Like, we are seeing a paradigm shift here. We've talked about how the Milwaukee Brewers did this a few years ago, and the Nats really are adopting this now, where when you try to identify starting pitcher, relief pitcher, you almost throw your hands up and are just like, they're all pitchers, and you just sort of look at them in that vein. I mean, the Perales thing really is instructive because for the longest time, we're looking at him as a starting pitching prospect for this team. And now they have him working as a reliever at AAA Rochester.
Now, I will say, when I asked Blake Butera about this last week, I think it was in Texas, and I had noticed somebody had pointed out to me what was going on in Rochester, so I wanted to ask him about the philosophy behind that. I followed up by saying, is this something that organizationally you think you could do moving forward, just thinking of having more guys as relievers and not traditional starters? And he kind of smiled and he said, no, that in the perfect world, they would want to have 5 traditional starters and 8 traditional relievers. They just, right now, that's not what they're really equipped to do, at least for the rest of this season. So this may be a reflection of what they have both at the big league level and at the AAA level, and wanting to see as many guys as they can and managing some innings maybe down the stretch. Perales is a guy who had Tommy John surgery, so they're probably, holding him back in some way this year. But it's not necessarily them saying they're about to become a team that stops defining pitchers and you're just going to have 13 out-getters, as it might be called, and roles don't really matter. No, that's not necessarily their philosophy. If they have to go that route, they would, but their preference would be to actually have 5 legitimate starting pitchers and then traditional relievers following them.
The thing, though, is this. I don't know that perfect world really exists anymore. Like, more and more, you're seeing teams have a hard time finding 5 legitimate starting pitchers. So, like, yes, ideally, you'd have 5 wonderful pitchers, and it would be like the mid-90s Atlanta Braves. Like, let me know when that happens again. Like, I don't know that is just realistic anymore. And so you may have to embrace this philosophy that the Nats are putting forth here. And whether they really want to do it or not, this may be the way that they have to do it, and more teams have to do it just because of the injury rate for pitchers and just the lack of development for a lot of these guys. Like, you're just not seeing a lot of teams have more than, 1, 2, 3 true starting pitchers. And then after that, it's either multiple guys who are really bad, or, you're doing, the opener thing, or you're using a reliever who's a starter some of the time, that kind of thing. We see it with all these opposing teams who the Nats face. You go through the opposing starting pitcher and you look at the season he has had, and it is so rare that it's like a legitimate good starting pitcher. So often it's someone who's got, he's been up and down, majors, minors. He some of the time has been a reliever, some of the time has been a starter, or he just hasn't been very good at all, as we've seen with some of the Nats starting pitchers this season. Now, also with Nats pitching on Tuesday. So the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having activated Matt Waldron, and the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having designated relief pitcher Trevor Williams for assignment. He becomes the 3rd notable veteran Nats pitcher DFA'd in this month of August. The Nats on August 5th announced having designated pitcher Zach Littell for assignment, and on August 7th announced having requested unconditional release waivers on Littell. The Nats on August 12th announced having designated pitcher Miles Mikolas for assignment, and on August 14th announced having requested unconditional release waivers on Mikolas. So Littell DFA'd, Mikolas DFA'd, Trevor Williams DFA'd. Now, we should note this. The Nats with Mikolas and Williams did wait until each guy had reached 10 years of Major League service time before DFA'ing the guy. So a nice gesture by the Nats. As most of you know, a player reaching 10 years of Major League service time guarantees that player maximum pension benefits. So Mikolas and Williams will be well taken care of. No need to worry about them. But here, I think, is the bottom line item with the Nats DFA'ing Trevor Williams. The Nats DFA'ing 3 veteran pitchers in Littell, Mikolas, and Williams in season, not the kind of thing that we had seen with the team in previous recent seasons. How much of the team doing this is President of Baseball Operations Paul Taboni behaving in a more forward-thinking way than his predecessor Mike Rizzo behaved, versus how much of this is, say, Nats ownership, the Lerner Group, okaying Taboni doing as maybe Rizzo wanted to do, but was not allowed to do? Like, what do you think this is about? Is this more Taboni driving this, or is this more about ownership allowing this, and that Rizzo wanted to do this kind of thing and just wasn't allowed to do this kind of thing? Because, as we know, the Nats have had plenty of veterans who are worth DFA'ing during these rebuilding years and never did this kind of thing. Now, all of a sudden, 3 veteran pitchers in 1 month have been DFA'd. Something has changed. What would you identify specifically as having changed?
So there could be a combination of what you're describing, but I think a key difference here is that we're talking about all these guys. Number one, we're in their final year before becoming a free agent. And I guess in Williams' case, making a little bit more money, but like most of these guys are not making that much money that when you cut them, you're not eating up that much in terms of salary. Let's compare that to a Patrick Corbin, who we talked about way too many times over the years. Would they make that move? And they didn't. Well, he was, for a lot of that, under contract for multiple seasons, making much more money, $20 million a year. And I think this is also a key point, for so much of that time, they just didn't have any other real viable options. And that's why they kept sticking with some of these guys as long as they did. Right now, at least they feel like they have some more promising young options. Now, I will say that while it certainly makes sense philosophically what they've done here, and obviously in the cases of Littell and Michaelis, they were not performing at all. Littell's already been DFA'd again by the Diamondbacks, by the way, and Michaelis does not have another job, and I think most would expect that his career is over. In the case of Trevor Williams, weirdly enough, he was pitching well for them. Now, that doesn't mean that it was important for them to see him the rest of the way or that he was going to contribute a lot or anything like that. I did think that was a little bit of a quirk to this one. For all the bullpen struggles they've had this year, he actually had been pretty good. Now, it's low leverage spots. Again, not like he was going to figure into any kind of real plans for them. But in the other cases, they did it like at sort of the low points for those pitchers. And in this case, it was clear that they were just ready to move on. And it almost didn't matter how he had pitched for them at all. So I think that's one slight difference. But it is a different approach than what the previous regime did. Some of that might have been just the way they felt about it. Some of that might have been ownership being less willing to eat money. But I think a lot of it also was just what else did they have in the organization at that time? At least now there are some guys worth looking at, Jackson Kent, Luis Perales, etc. And maybe that more than anything is the difference between 2026 versus the previous 5 years or so.
Williams did overall pitch well since coming off the 60-day injured list. Did not, though, pitch well in his last outing. I don't know to what extent that might have played a role in this, but he did not look especially good in his last outing, as we discussed. This episode of Nats Chat is brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You can call Table to Mat 240-388-2206. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
46th stolen base of the season for the Wings. This ball's well hit to right field. Rincones Jr. turns and watches it go. Yoandy Morales stakes the Red Wings to a 2-0 lead.
He is wearing out Lehigh Valley pitching. Came in hitting .405. He now has 3 home runs and 10 runs batted in against Lehigh Valley this year.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.